in today's video, we have a great topic. We are going to talk about how to handle cravings. So I'm so excited for this topic because I've been raw vegan now for close to 6 years. And in the beginning, I dabbled with cooked food here and there. Now I never eat it, and I literally never have cravings. I can say that with 100% certainty. Hook me up to a lie detector test. There are no cravings going on here. So I feel like I can help you guys a lot with this topic. I reached out. You guys have a lot of questions as well. And my amazing friend AJ from the Hungry People podcast, he has recently transitioned to the raw vegan diet. So he has so much to offer as well as far as dealing with cravings in the early stages. And he is a new raw vegan. Well, pretty new. So let's get right into it. How's it going, AJ? I'm really digging this shirt.
Oh, thank you. It's going really well. Things are seeming to line up in a way that I'm not used to. I'm getting better sleep. I'm feeling better. I've been exercising more, and it's actually been very, very beneficial for me to make that transition and eat this way. Whereas in the past, I've kind of like been up and down with it and pros and cons. This time it seems to be only positive. So
That's amazing. I'm so glad it's working for you. You look like you're glowing, you look happy, and you said you're sleeping well as well, right? You said that before we got on.
12 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is rare. I was someone who, you have some people who can sleep all day. Then you have the other people who have to get up at like 6 or 7. I was always that person that just woke up at 6 or 7, even if you went to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning. I just like woke up, and it's frustrating, right? So now I just sleep, and there's no like these timeline. It just is like whenever I go to bed, I at least get 8, 9, 10 hours.
Wow. And okay, so first I just want to start off by saying too, this video doesn't only apply to those who are wanting to be 100% raw vegan. It applies also to people who just want to incorporate more raw or a more healthy lifestyle, or drop the sugars, drop the processed foods, stuff like that. So maybe we start off with sleep and also guys, don't forget to subscribe, but sleep, that's a huge thing with craving. So I think a lot of people don't realize, when you set yourself up for the day by having a great sleep the night before, you're way more likely to stay on track with your health versus if you had a really poor sleep, you are way more likely to crave the crap. Wouldn't you say, AJ?
Yeah, 100%. That's been my personal experience. And then when I've researched different physicians and scientists, like Matthew Walker, he's a scientist out of Harvard. He says that our ability to say no to processed foods drops like 15%, just losing 1 hour of sleep. In 1 hour, people will write off 1 hour all the time. Oh, 5 or 6 is enough. But really, you want to make it easier for yourself to say no by not having the craving to begin with, right? So if you are fully rested, it's almost not even going to seem tempting.
Absolutely. So I would say like that's a big thing. Definitely prioritize your sleep. Even if you feel like staying up for like that extra hour or two at night, just get into that bed, put yourself to sleep, and you will thank yourself the next day. And then like, I feel like by starting, like we've talked about this in other videos, but by starting the day with like healthy habits, I feel like you're way more likely to stay on track for the remainder of the day. Don't you feel?
Yep. And if you're well rested, you're more likely to tackle those, right? It's going to make it seem way easier instead of trying to like wake yourself up, drink coffee just to get yourself going.
Yeah. And I feel like the green juice, which we talk a lot about, and like the fruits, the healthy stuff in the mornings really help keep you going. And coffee, well, we can get into the coffee later on too. I know a couple of my viewers wanted to talk about coffee, but I do want to say, like you said something when we talked a little bit before this video, you said something that I really liked and really resonated, and I think might resonate with other people. You said the freedom from cravings is better than satisfying the craving.
So true, right? Because that craving is almost like this shackle that's chained to you, and you have to like obey it to get what you want. But when you have that shackle and you're free, you have that off of you, everything's so much lighter and you're in control. And we all want to be in control, right? We don't want a partner to have more say about what we do. We don't want to have a parent, when we're older, to do that as well. We don't want our diet to control us. We want to fuel ourselves so that we can live how we want to live. And a craving is never going to give you that. Satisfying that craving just keeps you, chained down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it can be deceiving. I think a lot of people, when they want to get healthier habits, whether it be raw or just incorporating healthier habits, and they deal with those cravings, I think it's easy to think like that's how they're always going to feel. But they don't realize like if they can get through those hard times, like it changes big time. And that's been the case for me. What about you, AJ? Like as somebody who's recently transitioned to fully raw, and like I feel like it's really working for you this time. Have you dealt with cravings, and how have you sort of gotten around that?
The biggest way that I've dealt with it, if I have had a craving, is just to go eat more food. I think what we do when we transition or we become, we try to eat a certain way is we put up so many barriers. And in the beginning, I think I said this in the last time that we talked, it's really important to have such a wide range so that if you do falter, you might not eat the most optimum choice, but I'll go eat a raw vegan pizza, no problem. And that's kind of how I handled my cravings in the beginning, but I don't really have any now at all. But it's good to
Wow.
have some kind of cushion, right? Because I could have just went and eat anything.
Wow, that's incredible. And you know what? I just did an interview with Jackie Waters recently, and she lost 171 pounds raw. And she had just one of the most magnificent raw vegan transformations I've ever seen. I couldn't wait to have her on. And she said that a big thing for her that worked in the beginning was just keeping her freezer full of like raw vegan cheesecakes and like indulging in all these things to satisfy her sweet
Wow.
tooth. Yeah. And now she eats really clean. I mean, she does indulge in something now and then, but she doesn't deal with these cravings anymore. And that really worked for her. So I think that's a big thing that can work for people in the beginning when they're transitioning. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's huge because you just need more options. If you have no options, all you have is what you've done before as the fallback, and you don't want to go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw that pizza. I posted that a few weeks ago. It looked good, right? Like
Yeah.
it was actually incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about posting pictures, I do want to say, like in this day and age with social media and like all the stimulation everywhere we look, you can find beautiful pictures of like, amazing cooked foods everywhere too. Like you can scroll on Instagram, many people follow like chefs and all these accounts. And my tip would be too, if you're trying to incorporate more health habits, maybe unfollow like the accounts of things you don't want to eat that are constantly posting things. I know it can be like, especially when I've done juice cleanses or things like that, I always find myself like scrolling and looking at the food. So I'd say a big tip is to become conscious and deliberately don't look at food pictures of things like you don't want to eat. What do you think about that, AJ? That's worked for
I've
me.
been
Like
there.
stop. Yeah.
When I was juice fasting, I was watching tens of hours of food videos, not even vegan ones. And I was vegan for, 7 years already at that point. So really these mind games that we like when we're watching the food and we're scrolling, and that in and of itself, the act of doing that is also releasing dopamine. So we're really compounding the effect. So we're building this craving, and it's almost like this monster that's growing off the fear of something. It's growing off of that attraction to it, and then we build it up to something to where we're like, okay, we have to have this in order to satisfy it. So you want to make sure that you're not feeding into it, because then it can become out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say like don't watch like those cooking shows and like scroll the food, stuff like that. Cut that and replace it with like super healthy raw stuff. Like I love to follow Raw Aura and like pictures of raw vegan food. And you slowly do start to change and fall in love and like crave those things. But I just want to say too, like cravings aren't all food. Like there's a lot involved with cravings. So we're going to talk about that too. Many times when we have cravings, like we're bored, or like that's many times when we have cravings, whether you're on a juice cleanse, I'm on a fruit cleanse, or just not even on a cleanse, just trying to incorporate more health habits. Like we're simply lonely or bored a lot of times when we want to eat these things because we just want to escape the present moment and sort of cover up the pain and forget about it, because eating does do that. So don't you agree with that, AJ?
That's what I did my whole life. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's the most common thing. The food and the sex thing is the two most common ways we can get away from the alcohol. We can get away from the drugs and things, and completely abstain. But those two things are a little trickier because we require them in everyday. Everyone requires it at some degree.
Yeah. So I think when you're feeling like when you're dealing with those moments and you're in those moments, I get it that they can be so difficult, those emotional moments and stuff, or like lonely and you want to run away to the food. So I think you have to try and become super present and aware that you're feeling that way, and try and figure out what you're trying to run from, and try to like just gain that awareness and that presence and sort of look within and become more self-aware and try to deal with that. And I think that, I mean, would you not agree? Do you not agree that that's a great thing to do when somebody's dealing with those moments?
It's the best thing you can do. What I'll do if I'm having, this was maybe the last time this happened 2 or 3 months ago. I was having an extreme craving. Like I wanted to go out and just buy like $30 worth of the worst food and just eat it. Right. Not the worst ever, but pretty bad stuff that would make me feel sick. So I made myself sit in my lawn chair, sitting in the sun for at least an hour until I could decide without the heavy emotion and excitement, do I really want to eat that? And within 20 minutes, I'm like, no, I was just feeling anxious, and I was just like sick and tired of like prepping food or doing whatever. And I just wanted to buy stuff and eat it. Right. So I walked myself through that emotionally by just sitting with it. And it was very uncomfortable the first 3 minutes. I'm like, this is really awful. I want to get up. Right. But then after a couple of minutes and being able to ground and feel that out, it was no longer there. So that was clearly emotional, not because I needed the calories or some kind of nutrients I wasn't getting or something along those lines. It was more stress related. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, it's important for people to realize if they're sitting with those cravings, like this isn't how it's going to feel forever. So realize mentally, like it's going to change. It changed for me. So if it changed for me, it can change for you. Like as your gut microbiome changes over time, as your cravings change, like it's proven it can even take our taste buds like 21 days to change, right? So as those change, your cravings totally change as well.
Yeah, you're going to crave healthier and healthier food because the microbiome starts to appreciate that and utilize that and use that as compost for its own like growth and stuff. So it people may not believe it because they've been eating this way for so long, like eating garbage foods for so long. But actually, even if it takes 21 days, that isn't that long, right? And if you
Mm-mm.
start to feel better and you start to feel more energy and the food starts to taste better, it's like this upward spiral, which makes it just incredible.
I agree. And I think it's important in that time period that people go and find people that they admire or look up to or mentors who are eating how they eat and sort of just immerse themselves in that content and like just see like it's changed for them. It's going to change for me. And it's a real mental game. Just remind yourself, like program your subconscious. I have an app called I Am. You can record your voice into it saying anything you want to say. Just say, I am a raw vegan or I am healthy or whatever. You'll slowly become that. And yeah, I think there's also something to there is being aware with the feelings and being present. And then there's also the opposite, which is distracting yourself from it as well, which can work in other times. So I mean, for me, what's worked is just in those moments. I think what's really helped is just totally focusing on my passion. So I think if you're like in those moments with those cravings and you're not feeling happy, you're feeling unsatisfied with life, you're feeling lonely, I think you really have to think like what makes you feel alive? Like that feeds us, right? More than the food. What makes you feel alive, excited to keep going in life? Like what feeds you that's not food? Like, and for me, that's creating content on here, my YouTube channel, things like that. So I think that's part of the reason too. I literally never have cravings. So what are your thoughts on that, AJ?
Well, living your life purpose makes the food thing seem so small. It's like, oh yeah, it's fuel, right? And it's healthy and it's interesting and whatnot. But when you're living your purpose, like you making these videos for me, the things that I do, that stuff is just the secondary. It's no longer because a lot of us we're putting food as like it's the ultimate. It's all we think about all day long, and that's why I say it's like a prison almost. When really, if you're going after your real goals and your real purpose, and you feel truly alive, then it's just like a supplement. It's like yes, you eat when it's time to eat, but then you go and live, you go and play, you do your sports or you work out or you hang out with really good people and friends and you travel and you do these things like to eat to live, right? You want
Yeah.
to eat to live, not the other way
Yeah.
around. Like I've spent most of my life just thinking about food 24/7. Doesn't matter if I'm eating 10,000 calories, I'm still doing it because I never cultivated that healthy relationship with food, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really common. I think a lot of us have. And like, I've been there too. And I think it's just the worst thing you can do is just sit around your bed or sit around your couch, like thinking about food. And many times it's easy to overeat too and like indulge and when you're not even hungry, because really at the end of the day, like you're not doing what you love in life and you're not excited about your life. So I think that's one of the biggest things like you guys can hopefully take from this is like figure out what gets you excited. And then when you're feeling those cravings and you think you have cravings and stuff, and you start to transmute that energy and put it towards like in that moment, if you have that craving, just maybe like to forget about it, go work on something you love before you know it, like your energy will change. You'll feel happier and you realize I'm not even hungry anymore. I wasn't even really wanting that bad food or like that food, right?
Yeah, and I would like even for your viewers to take a second to think about when you've been really, let's say, if you're an athlete, you could probably relate to this. When you've been training and you've been doing really well and you feel great and you're like so focused, you do all the extra stuff. You wake up a little bit earlier, you make sure you go to bed a little earlier, whatever. You follow all these routines. You almost notice that it doesn't feel like really important. Or if you've been in love and you're so in love with that person, it's like, oh yeah, like I didn't eat yet today because it all falls
Mhm.
away. But when you have nothing, or it feels like we have nothing. So all of a sudden the food feels so important. Like it's the only thing we have. And that's like a red flag to keep in mind. It's not that it's bad that you're there, because we've all been there, right? But it's important to recognize it so that at least you can start to move in a direction where you're cultivating better things in your life.
I couldn't agree more. So well said. And yeah, I think like the last 3 years, that's where I've been with going through the divorce and like lots of low moments. I found myself for the first time in my life just like wanting to escape, like just having deep pain and like with my life, what's happened, just like eating, overeating, even the raw foods, right?
Yeah.
And I think many times people don't realize too, you might think you're hungry or have cravings, but you're dehydrated. That's a huge thing. I've even, oh, sorry, some snow fell outside there. It scared me. But I've even dealt with that recently too. And I've just chugged a bunch of water. Then been like, oh, I wasn't even hungry. So I think that's important too, to make sure you're hydrated. And I personally do still think water is important on the raw vegan diet. It works for me. What
So
about you?
important. It's one of the most underappreciated things in health in general. I remember I was working and I couldn't focus at all. I couldn't remember a thing. I was having to study 10,000 products, and I over and over I was just failing at reciting it. And then I went back, took a
Okay, guys, we just had a bit of a technical issue. A pole knocked down AJ's internet. So we are back. So we might not leave off exactly where we just were, but because we forget. But
oh, actually, I was talking about digestion, and like if there's people out there who are really hungry, but if they eat, it puts a lot of pressure on their system because they're so constipated, right? So even just being able to flush out your healthy like gut, if you can have that ability to put new food in without having that external pressure, then that's another reason why you're not going to have these intense cravings, because you can actually nourish yourself properly.
yeah, good point. That was a point on your list from before too, like being properly nourished. And I think that's where some deep cleansing can benefit you too. Maybe you need some juice cleansing or some monofruit cleansing or the odd colonic. I mean, everybody's different. Some people feel like they don't. So definitely do what works for you. But I think cleansing, and maybe if you have parasites, do a parasite cleanse, get rid of those parasites, get rid of any plaque in there, and clean out your colon. Then you're going to absorb the nutrients better when you do eat the clean foods, and then your cravings will diminish as well. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I do just want to say too, like with regards to it not being all food, I think it's important that we move a lot more than we think too. Like I've heard we actually need like 5 to 7 hours of walking a day. I don't know what it is, but that sounds like it makes sense, because back in the day we'd be like foraging and walking around, right? So I think like I always say this, but emotion follows motion. If you're sitting around feeling like you're sad and depressed and want to eat or have these cravings, like get moving, turn on some high vibe music, clean your house, go out for a walk. What do you have to say about this, AJ? I think it's a huge point.
You're going to actually absorb the nutrition better. So for people who have poor sugar metabolism, the way that you instantly improve that is get more oxygen into your system. And what happens is, because there's more oxygen and blood flow, now the sugar gets forced into the cell a lot easier, because the blood isn't all thick and goopy, and things are having trouble in that way. So when we increase our movement and oxygen, we increase every function of the body. We increase our ability to balance our electrolytes, so we don't have these like ups and downs. Same with our sugar metabolism. Our elimination improves, our sleep improves. All these things play on each other. It might seem almost a little repetitive or redundant, but these are all physiological needs of the human body. So being able to move and eat and hydrate and eat and sleep is going to play into this whole thing when it comes to cravings.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to cravings, what would you say about the people we surround ourselves with, like toxic relationships, and how they might affect our food habits?
Yeah, I'm really interested what you have to say on this too, because I know that this has been a big deal in both our lives. It's probably the number one thing, in my opinion, when it comes to success, is environment and the people we put ourselves around. Because if we have people who are just stressed all the time and just complain, they always see the bad side in life. They never want to improve. They never want to take care of themselves. They always want to be up late. They always want to go out to eat. They always want to drink something. How much easier does that make it for us, someone who's interested in doing the opposite of all that? It's difficult. I mean, the more stressed I feel, the harder it is to do any positive thing for myself. Now, that doesn't mean that I get to like blame the person completely. I have to take my own responsibility, but it does part of that responsibility is limiting my interaction with them, because it only brings me down. Like, I want to improve. I want to have a better life. And I want to surround myself with people who are better than me in a lot of ways, so that I actually get brought up with them, and then I can help bring them up too at the same time.
Yeah, well said. I think it is important that you surround yourself with people who want to see you at your best, and they love you, and they want to see you doing what you want to do. And some people who you maybe have some similar health habits to, not obviously not that eat the exact same. I don't have anyone here in Toronto who's raw vegan with me, but it's important to surround yourself with some like-minded people. Like, for instance, I don't hang out with any of the people I used to hang out with who are like drinking, and I used to drink all the time too, but I just feel like our vibes and our energy don't mesh anymore. And just the habits, like, I think it is important who you surround yourself with. They say like you become like a combination of the top 5 people you hang out with. And I think it's true. So I think it's important we become aware of who we're spending our time with, and spend our time with people who sort of make us feel our best and bring out the best in us. And that will only lead to a good path, because you can notice with certain people you feel your best, and then with other people you don't. So sort of like do your best to hang out with the right people and stay on track with your health. But I mean, that being said, sometimes I hang out with people who have totally different lifestyles, but I feel like you have to look at it like some people say, be the star in your own movie. Like, own it if you eat that way too. Don't think like, oh, they're eating that way, I have to like conform and copy to how they eat. Still just own the way you eat, and then you'll inspire other people and stay on track no matter what your circumstances are. And then you'll reap the rewards from it.
Yeah. And sometimes the people who eat that way still have a high vibe, right? So they still don't bring down your overall energy and presence, which is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So I hang out with tons of people that don't eat the same way, but I don't want to be around people who are just awful, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another point you had before we got on was on your list was waiting too long to eat. I think that's a really good point. If we wait too long to eat and let ourselves get hungry, that those are the moments where we develop those intense cravings. It can be very easy to be like, let me just order a pizza. Let me get a poutine. I'm in Canada. I don't know if you guys know what poutine is, but
I don't.
Really? Well, it's pretty well known here. It's like fries with gravy and cheese. I think I'm just saying, like, it's just an example, but it's really easy to think of these foods that aren't so ideal, right? I'm trying not to use the word good and bad, but these foods, yeah, that aren't so ideal. So I think it's important that you always are prepared. This is where that point comes into play too. Like, always be prepared no matter where you go, whether you're at work, at a wedding, at a social gathering, just in your car, going to pick up your kids, going to the mall, going to get groceries, wherever you are. Always be prepared and make sure you're eating like the healthy food, and you don't let yourself get starving and tempted to eat those bad foods.
It's so easy almost to go all day without eating. I think a lot of people can do it, but where most people struggle is with dinner. Dinner has always been like the harder thing in general, whether you're eating breakfast or not. So my point being, a lot of us can kind of go all day, but then that dinner time, that evening, is where we binge out, eat a bunch of bad stuff. So it's really important to eat during the day and eat enough so that when it comes to dinner, you're not ravenous. And that's when our standards drop. And that's when our ideals and all these things drop. And we'll go for whatever's convenient and easy and tasty and familiar. But if we're able to have a really nourishing breakfast and lunch, now it's like, hey, it's time to eat, but you're not like this, psycho when it comes to like, you have to have your food or you're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah, that's one thing I never deal with raw. Like, when I used to not be raw, when I wasn't as healthy, I would just become a lunatic if I was starving, like that crazy, like, and sometimes my blood sugars would be such a mess if I would be hungry that a couple times when I was a teenager, I would pass out. Like, they said, oh, we think it's hypoglycemia. I don't deal with any of that now.
Good.
Yeah. So another thing, which I think is important, which AJ, you brought up earlier too, was to know your why. So know why you're doing that is a big mental game to staying on track with your cravings. And like I've said, the longer you go, then they just go away on their own anyway. And it doesn't have to become such a strong mental game, but for a while it can be a mental game. But if I can do it, you guys can do it. I used to eat a lot of crap. I used to drink a lot. I used to have coffee, everything. So you have to know your why. And for me, I do it because I just want to feel the most high vibe and just be in the best position to sort of handle whatever life might throw at me. I feel like I can handle things way better eating this way. It has brought me to life. I feel so energized, so full of life. And most importantly, I feel like myself eating this way. So that's a big reason why I do it. I feel in alignment and I feel like I'm on the right track, on the right course. And I just feel like my life will get better and better because of it. I'm much more creative, so many things. So that is why I do it. And I wouldn't want to go back to how I felt before. What about you, AJ?
I just want to say that that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy interacting with you, is because I really believe that. I really believe that you are like, you come across as this is who you are. This is yourself. It's not some kind of like pretend thing or a game or whatever. Like what you see with Jill is what you get. And that's what I really enjoy most, because a lot of people are just putting on their best self, or almost like pretending to be something they're not. And I personally surround myself with people who I really feel comfortable and trust. And for myself, my why is because I've had a lot of challenges in the past with health related stuff: sleep issues, weight issues, constipation issues, stress issues, all, inflammation issues. I mean, I could write a whole book about it, which I will one day. But that being said, this time around, it's been a lot clearer on what needs to be done. Now, you made a point earlier, Jill, that we want to indulge ourselves with the information, maybe put on a bunch of YouTube videos and really read a bunch of books and just fully immerse ourselves, which is what I've always done. And it's very important. You don't want to come into this having like no idea what to do, right? But also being able to step back when you do feel as though you have the information and listen to yourself, so that you're not just only going by everyone else's kind of structure or rules. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I'm following, this person's advice, but I come up against this wall that can't be solved, now I'm kind of in this, terrible place that I don't want to be. But if I give myself a little bit of cushion to ebb and flow with it, okay, I'll eat some processed raw foods, or I'll eat a little bit later, not have all these strict timelines and different things. Now I can continue to improve, but at the same time, not feel like I'm so strict. So being able to be informed, but listen to your own self is been the biggest part of this. And I do it because I just want to be an amazing son. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to grow my podcast. I want to have great conversations with amazing people such as yourself. And I can't do that if I'm sick and I feel like crap and I'm irritable, because who would want to be around me, right?
Yeah, I feel like you're just not your best self. Like, for me, not eating this, like if I eat the other way, like if I eat standard American or even cooked, like even any cooked food, even if it was like a healthy cooked food, like I notice a big difference, and I'm just not my best self. So I think we just need to do what works for us and be our best selves, become more and more of who we are every day, and make our lives the best. And I think another good point you had was other bad habits trigger eating habits too, right? Like, like I can't, I love coffee more than anything in this whole world, but I can't drink coffee because I know that by the end of the day, I'm going to have some cooked food, because I just like my stress is going, I just like, I feel that just a deeper hunger, like that, like I need to have like a heavier meal. And so I think that's a good point. Like smoking coffee, or even like sugar, processed foods, like a lot of things, if you remove them, even like agave, I think that induces cravings. And I think removing all these things, then you're way less likely to fall off and deal with cravings for things you don't want to be eating.
Yeah, the higher the highs, the lower the lows. And I feel as though, like, if I'm really hyper stimulated on chocolate or coffee, it's so much easier to say yes to anything, because we do feel good, and it's like, we don't want to be a buzzkill, we want to do whatever, right? So if we're hyper stimulated on sugar, or processed sugar and all these things, it just makes it so much easier to not have the boundaries that we've put up. And sometimes boundaries are an amazing thing, right? And we want boundaries, but if we kind of open the door to things that we wouldn't usually do, it's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And it's almost like the craving. You feed the craving, it just grows.
Exactly. Whatever you feed grows, right? And again,
Right.
like I just want to emphasize over and over, it's just so important to know, if you don't feed those cravings and you remove these things from your body, like anything that's like addictive and we're craving, I think it's bad for us. Even sometimes if like eating too, like a lot of people like eating a lot of cashews can sometimes feel that way too. Maybe they're not so good for us, but things that like we crave for some reason, a lot of times they're bad for us, right? And once you get them all out of your body, even if it takes like 60 days, because I know for me, when I quit coffee, it's just like hell coming off of it for like a month. Like it can take
Ooh,
a
yeah.
while, right? If you drink, it can take a while to start feeling really good. So
The
it's
worst
just
I've ever felt was coming off of tea. I didn't
coming off of
realize
tea.
I was drinking a lot of green tea, like 15 cups a day, I think, or something. And what happened was this was 10 years ago. I got sick. So I didn't stop drinking it on purpose. I was just like, I had like stomach bug or something, and I couldn't keep down fluids. So I was sick, and at the same time I was detoxing from all that caffeine, and I'm like, why is my head going to explode? Like I was having the worst ever migraines. It was
Wow.
awful. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, I
Well,
worked for an organic tea shop, so I would work and just drink tea all day.
yeah. Wow. But yeah, see, it can be tough. It can be a lot tougher than people think, like getting off of those things. But once you get off it, you're just like so much happier. And it's easy for those things to sort of trick your mind and think like, I can't live without this. My life is so rad and so good with these things, right? But then you don't
Right.
realize like you wake up in the mornings when you're off of that stuff, feeling so much better. You're like way more awake, so much faster, and you're just on track and high vibing.
Yeah. How many of your viewers can remember when they used to, when they were younger or even 10 years ago, wake up and they're so excited to experience their day? A lot of us are like, we got to get up. Shit. Right.
Mhm.
And what an amazing feeling. That's just the best feeling ever when you get to look forward to living your day instead of
Yeah,
just waiting for to get off work. And then at night you get to have your pizza and do these things and then start all over. It's like this prison.
exactly. And another thing, like some people talk about this. I've talked about it a bit lately. For me, like onions and garlic, for some reason, they make me more angry. And this is common. A lot of Buddhists don't consume them because of that. They say like they trigger your nervous system and have effects on you. And it's definitely the case for me. So this might be something people want to consider looking into as well. I just want to put that out there because, yeah. And another thing I just want to say too, guys, is like, I think for me, what's really worked before we get into the viewers' questions is I never eat cooked food ever. And I'm not, I know some people think like, oh, some of these raw vegans on these channels, they're lying. They're sneaking some eggs behind the scenes and all this. You see people comment this all the time and they say, oh, she's feeling amazing because she's not really doing it. But I'm doing it 100%. Hook me up to a lie detector test and I love it. It makes me feel amazing. And I think that's a reason why I don't crave stuff at all now. Like I have eaten so clean for so long. I take just so much effort to eat like a wide variety and just like so many amazing things. And I'm in love with the lifestyle. I'm in love with healthy eating and I don't crave like crappy food ever at all now. And I think that's why, because I've cut it 100%. I know some people think like, oh, that can be extreme. But for me, like moderation isn't the answer. It's not good for me to have like a cooked meal one day a week or like indulge in a coffee now and then. I know that's what works for a lot of people more because they don't want to feel like all the restrictions, which I totally get and I totally respect. You have to do what works for you. But for me, handling the cravings and not dealing with the cravings is being 100% clean eating. For me, it's 100% raw. For you, it might be like some steamed veggies or things like that. But that's why I think I don't crave it. I think if I were to eat like a cooked meal once a week, then I would, for me, it's like a bit addictive. I would then want to eat more cooked food the next day. I'd be dealing with cravings for the rest of the week. By the time I was over them, I'd be eating my cooked meal again. It's just not worth it.
It's a difference in genetics. There's going to be people who've always just had a beer and it's not affected them, but they think that everyone is like that. When you have this other person, if they have one beer, they're going to have 20, they're going to ruin their whole life. Right. And it's the same with dietary stuff. Some people are like, I have a chip, I'm fine. Some people have 3 bags of chips. I think that the best approach to this is realizing where we stand as individuals and having some empathy and understanding for the other people who either have challenges or they don't, and not comparing ourselves to them. How many people do I know who have so much more self-control than me? There's a lot. That's why I almost have to be a little more strict, because I know my boundaries. And when you know your own boundaries pretty well and you know yourself, it's a lot easier to stay on this and be successful, because you're not trying to live in a way where other people are living and kind of have the moderation aspect. There's plenty of people where moderation works great. Doesn't work for me though. It sounds like it doesn't work for you, Joe, right?
No, it doesn't. And I think like, don't be afraid to follow your own path and do what everyone else isn't doing. You know what I mean? Because it's not common to eat this way. That's for sure.
All the people doing the most common stuff are the people you never remember and who aren't interesting at all. And I'm sure they're good people, but if you think about someone who's in the middle about every single subject in life, they're just the average everyday person who doesn't really do anything interesting. So I think it's pretty cool to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm all for just doing what is, you're in your path, following your destiny, even if it's just something so out of the box and so different than everyone else does. Just do what works for you. And okay, so I reached out to my viewers. I told them that we were making this video and they had so many amazing questions because you guys are awesome. And I love interacting with you guys. I love you guys. I have like the best viewers ever on this channel. So I'm lucky, and I hope you guys love AJ because he's awesome. I plan on making a lot of videos with him. He's good vibes and he's so well spoken. So give him a big thumbs up right now and go follow him. I'll link your stuff below. But let's get into questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so Honey Loves Luxury said, "Hi Gillian, I love your passion for this lifestyle. Can you share what snacks and foods you keep on hand when you go out to or attend a social gathering?" So I will answer that. And then AJ, I'd love to hear with these questions, your perspective as well and what you do. So snacks and food, usually if I'm going to like a party where I'm bringing something, then I might go to Raw Aura, which is a local raw food restaurant, and get some, they make a really like so many amazing pre-made stuff, like some raw vegan tzatziki or hummus. They make some beautiful desserts because even though I don't like to eat a lot of chocolate, I know other people like who eat regular, they even love the raw desserts more than regular. So I'll get some blueberry cheesecake, some banana chocolate cake, stuff like that. And they make the most amazing kale chips, things like that. And I'll bring stuff like that just to sort of show people like how amazing this lifestyle can be. If I'm bringing food or if I'm bringing meals, I'll bring like a curry, a pasta curry, things like that. And if I'm just bringing like my own snacks somewhere, my go-to will be like fruit and nuts, like blueberries, walnuts. They're mood lifting foods. So things that I know I can eat easy on the go and not have to like, I could just keep in my bag or whatever and feel like high vibe and feel amazing. So, and I always have food on my car. I always have food everywhere I go. And I'm not tempted for drive-throughs or tempted to eat the other foods at the parties. It's all about being prepared. So what do you think, AJ? What do you do in those situations?
If I'm doing really well and I'm really prepared, I'll have some juices and smoothies and some mason jars made up in a cooler so that if I'm going to be out for a couple hours, I know that I'll have that sitting there. And that's usually my favorite thing. But if I'm not prepared, what I'll do is I'll get a bunch of Honeycrisp apples, some good organic Fuji apples or Envy apples. If I have ripe bananas, those are always like the easiest and the best things. The walnuts are incredible. I usually don't eat much nuts, but I will eat walnuts out of all the nuts. I think that those are awesome. If as far as like some kind of like gourmet type stuff, there's this brand at Whole Foods and Mom's Organic in New Jersey where I'm currently at, and they have this brand called Awesome Foods, which is like raw wraps, raw pizzas, raw tacos, raw what else is there, like raw sushi, and it's like unbelievable. It's amazing. It tastes great. It digests pretty well. It's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it feels really light and clean still compared to if I ate something else. So it's really nice to be able to stop and get that if I am busy. But as far as other snacks, like I don't eat dried fruit. I'm not a big fan of dried fruit just because of the teeth and stuff like that and feeling more dehydrated. I don't prefer that.
Me too.
But just fresh fruit is probably the easiest go-to thing when it comes to that.
Yeah. Even if I'm traveling on a plane or whatever, I bring fruit, lots of stuff people don't realize you can travel around the world on a plane. So certain things I will bring. And even if I'm going to a hotel, like I bring food with me. And like you said, fruits are the easiest. So I usually bring a lot of fruits or maybe some locally made raw vegan salads that I know are fresh and all raw, or just some great snacks. And in a hotel too, if they don't have a fridge, just know most of the time, almost every time I've gone to a hotel, if they don't have a fridge, I call down and ask, can you bring a fridge? And they'll bring a fridge. And even this weekend, I'm going away up north to someone's house for the weekend. And I have like a really awesome cooler bag. So I will literally bring all my own food in that cooler bag. And it's really good. So I can link it down below in case you guys are interested. I did a lot of research to find the best cooler bag and like it has a great handle. So I just think no matter what the situation, whether you're traveling, whether you're going to a party, whether you're going to work, wherever you're going, it's easy to be prepared and get snacks that sort of appeal to you. That's not an issue for me. Do you find that it's an issue for you, AJ, when you're like in social settings or whatever?
Not generally. I think preparing a good salad too, just so you do have like, it's not a snack necessarily, but having a good meal, that's been huge too. And like salads are just incredible. Everything about a salad I love. I think it's like one of the most gourmet meals in an enjoyment sense that I make, and it's in a healthy way.
I love salads, and there's so much you can do with salads. Lately, I love to put like a mango salsa in the salad. And mango salsa is just so good in salad. There's just so many good dressings you can make, and they're really quite delicious.
Hits every time.
Yeah. And I think with social settings too, I don't know. Well, I do know about you and Woodstock Fruit Festival. I think it's just important too to maybe look into social settings that might like match your needs, like even if they're virtual or in person. Like find a group online. I'm thinking about starting my own community, but find a group online where people eat this way and interact with people. That helps too. Anytime you're having cravings, you can post like, I'm having cravings, can I get support? And the whole group is there to support you. You can find like-minded friends. And I want to go to Woodstock Fruit Festival. I think you have a deal with them, right? You have a coupon code. If people use your coupon, we could link below, or no, if they go
Yeah,
there.
so the people who are coming for the first time, Woodstock Fruit Festival is an annual event where we have 400 to 600 people come up to Diamond Point, New York, and it's just an awesome festival. Vegan, raw vegan, fitness. It's awesome. And if it's your first year and you use our code for my podcast, Hungry People, you'll save $100 off your first time. So it's a
Yeah.
really amazing event. You'll meet tons of great people. I talk with people on the daily basis that I've met through there. Really awesome stuff. Good people, just real chill vibes, healthy community.
Yeah, so that I'm excited to hit up that social gathering. I've never been, and I've heard it's like the best food in the world. So that's going to be pretty awesome.
It's great. I love it's like the highlight of the year.
Yeah. Okay. So the next viewer said, would be interesting to hear your opinion on how both cooked foods or inappropriate food combining on the raw diet can feed candida yeast in our body, which does lead to cravings and addictions. Yeah, that's very true. And I think like sugar and processed foods and gluten, the way it's processed now, stuff like that is like a big culprit for that, especially like sugar, like white sugar, that's like the processed food, all that. So
Yeah.
I think a big thing, like even if you don't want to be raw or whatever, is like removing those things from your diet and the cravings will diminish greatly. And as far as inappropriate food combining goes on the raw diet, I don't think there's, what do you think about that? I know like eating a million things at once, it's like hard to realize when you're full, like you want to eat more. So I guess that is true. Like the simpler you eat, maybe you get satisfied easier and don't crave as much. But I feel like I've improperly food combined here and there. And I wouldn't say so much it's led to cravings, but more like maybe digestive upset. Maybe it's not the most ideal thing. But what are your thoughts on this, AJ?
I think it just depends on how sensitive someone's system is. If they're combining a bunch of stuff and they are getting bloated and backed up, and then they're maybe fermenting in a way because that bloating and combination is all the gases, like that can maybe lead to some cravings. But if you have like more of a healthy gut already and you're combining some stuff, you're not really going to have any issues, right? Because you're going from combining all these cooked foods to combining healthier, easier to digest, hydrating raw food. So I don't think it's that much of an issue. I think that if you're eating lots of cooked food and you're combining that with lots of raw food, that can be a problem, just because you're putting something that's so dense in your body and then you're putting this huge volume either on top of it or it's interacting. That can be a problem because these foods are high in fiber, which makes them, more volume. So I think that paying attention to that, I know the whole concept of raw till 4 is that you eat your raw foods throughout the day and then you have that heavier meal at night, so that the next day when you have your raw foods, you've already digested the heavier stuff. But if you're having like pancakes for breakfast and then you're doing a bunch of fruit for lunch and then you're eating steak and potatoes for dinner, it can all just start to kind of not mesh so well, right?
So true. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. And a lot of people don't realize and make that mistake. Some people come to me and they're like, I have bloating, digestive problems. I'm like eating a lot of raw, like they're trying to eat like 70, 80% raw, but they're still eating cooked, but they're not eating it in the optimal order. And and you guys have to realize like the raw foods digest so fast. They have all the enzymes, all the life, all the water content. So they digest so much faster than the cooked foods, which has the water content removed and some of the life force and enzymes removed. So those are harder to digest. They sit in your system longer. So yeah, if you're eating like a big cooked meal and then you go on to have like fruits or easy to digest raw foods after, it's going to mess with your digestion. And then yeah, it can mess with like the bacteria in there and the cravings and stuff like that. So I think it is important to, like AJ said, like if you're going to eat some cooked, if I was going to eat cooked food, I would eat raw all day, have my cooked dinner, and then not eat anything after the cooked dinner till the next day. And I would
Yeah,
probably,
maybe
yeah,
have some water at night to reconstitute some of the dehydration lost.
yeah. If I haven't had cooked food in a long time, I don't eat it all now. But if I did, I feel like I need so much water. That's part of the reason I don't have it. But yeah, I think food combining is important, and like the order of the way you eat your food, like that. Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully we helped with that. I'll go into the next one. So the aerial perspective says, perfect topic. This is basically my number one main issue. What keeps me from staying raw or fruitarian? I don't know if it's only about calories, but even if I eat an incredible amount of calories, sometimes I can't feel satiated. So I think this is a big thing for a lot of people. Lately, I feel super satiated by eating like some creamy zucchini noodle pasta dishes. Like I have some recipes, which I will try link below. Otherwise, they're on my channel. And having some nice creams, like some carob nice creams or some blue spirulina ice creams. I find those things like super satiating and satisfying, especially the zucchini pastas, though. That's been number one for me. Like I eat this tomato marinara sauce lately and then a salad on the side, and it's just so satisfying. So I think it's all about finding what works for you and finding different things to feel full, like the chia seed pudding, which I always talk about. That's a game changer for me for like feeling satisfied and full. Coconut water and eating the coconut meat. That's another thing that like works for me. And I just think the more you remove the other foods and the longer you're on this path and doing the clean eating and making sure you're getting all the proper nutrients and eating enough calories, then it starts to work more and more. What is your experience with that though, AJ?
I think there's a lot of people who focus on micronutrients only, and then there's people who focus on macronutrients only and calories. So the difference being like some people are worried about all about the vitamins and minerals, and the others are worried about just getting enough calories, getting enough carbs, right? And I think that what I've learned over all of this, because I've been all over the diet wars for almost 10 years now, is like you want to focus on both. You want to make sure you get enough calories, but you still want to make sure you get enough nourishment. If I eat 3,000 calories of white rice, I feel awful. I've gotten enough calories, but I don't feel like I've gotten all the micronutrients that I want. So I think you should probably set a baseline if you're really new to this and like, hey, I'm going to get at least 2,000 calories because I don't want to be malnourished and starving. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, realize like you want to get a wide variety of foods. You want to get fats. Fats are so important. Protein is so important on any diet. And there's too many people, I think, just focusing on like one macronutrient and that's it. So get like the wide variety, get at least a baseline of enough food because you're an adult, you're eating healthy food. You shouldn't be scared of the calories because these are actually going to help fuel you to both exercise, feel better, not binge and eat a bunch of stuff and keep weight on and feel unhealthy. So just being open to the fact of like, let's try a ton of new foods. Let's make sure we eat enough and let's try to actually have some timestamps on when we want to finish eating. So like for breakfast, you want to make sure you're eating at least 500 to 1,000 calories, not like 200 calories, and then 200 calories for lunch. And then when it comes to dinner, you binge on, even if it's raw foods, that's not going to be healthy, right? So keeping the variety, eating like different macronutrients and eating healthy food, I think is what I would suggest.
Yeah. And I think like I've said, like the longer you go and the longer your gut microbiome changes, the more satisfied you do become with the food. Like
Yeah,
it
and
does change.
some of that stuff starts to die off, like whether it is parasites or mold or yeast. As your system gets healthier, it starts to balance out the proper ratios of that stuff and eliminate the ones that the body doesn't want.
Yeah. And like sometimes it can take a while. Like it can, for some people, it can take like a while. It could take like months and months or like a year, like something, but it does change. And then you start to thrive and it just shows on the inside, on the outside as well.
And when you feel
Okay.
better, run with that. That's what I would do. Like just enjoy that feeling because it's the best feeling on earth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, smoothie drinker says, I tried the raw vegan diet, but could only last 2 weeks. In the end, I felt really hungry and relied on a lot of nuts for dressings in my salads. I'm not giving up, but my question is, how do you sustain this without a lot of nuts, tahini, and how do you keep feeling full? I've been vegan for 7 years with some vegan processed food, which I'm desperate not to eat. Thank you, Gillian. I think you're amazing. Thank you so much, smoothie drinker. I think you're awesome too. Thanks for watching. So I just want to say, I think like the video I did, which I mentioned earlier with Jackie, where she said in the beginning, like she was eating like the raw cheesecakes, all these things to just sort of keep on track. So maybe like don't be afraid while you transition to sort of indulge in some extra fats and some extra like raw desserts and stuff like that until your microbiome starts to change. But it does change. And are there ways, AJ, you have nuts and fats too, right? Like, are there any tips you would give for how to sustain this without a lot of nuts and tahini?
Yeah, for the first thing I would do is just familiarize myself with a few places where I can, if I'm having a craving, go and eat somewhere else, because that's been important for me. And as far as like lowering the nuts, if I'm going to be lowering fats and nuts, personally, I would increase and make sure I'm having at least some avocado, some coconut meat. I'm eating more fruit because we have to like replace some of that nut calorie with some kind of calories, right? And fruit burns really cleanly. So that's like a really good source. Just eating more healthy salads. I think just increasing the volume and the calorie density would be very beneficial. But if you're only relying on nuts and seeds, there's going to come a point where it's just too heavy on your system.
And you'll feel too tired. I think it's just
Yeah,
a fine balance. Like for me, I feel super satisfied. Like I said, with the dinner, having a zucchini pasta with some nuts, like in the dressing. If I were to eat all those nuts, it would make me feel a lot more tired and harder to digest, but
same.
soaking them, putting them in a dressing, that's different. That's a tip I would give you as well. And I know you said you tried for 2 weeks and you're still eating some vegan processed food before that. So I think again, like it takes longer than that in most cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the cravings to diminish and to feel more satisfied and to feel more satisfied on like not as heavy nuts and stuff like that.
Especially if you're still, because she said she was still having some vegan processed foods. So imagine
Or
Jill,
I
like,
don't know, it might be a he. I don't
or
know if
he,
the
yeah,
smoothie. Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
sure. Just
yeah.
going from that and having so much familiarity and options to just like fruits and vegetables and some nuts, it can seem daunting and kind of scary, and you don't know what to eat, and it'd be a little bit overwhelming. So giving yourself more choices, I think, is the best option I could say.
Yeah. And when I first transitioned in 2016, I was eating a lot of nuts. Like I was eating a lot of walnuts as snacks and eating a lot. And that worked for me for transitioning. Sometimes to transition and like change our gut bacteria, I think just maybe don't be afraid to like eat a little bit more of the nuts or whatever works, or indulging in some of the gourmet, like not super heavy stuff, but just if you really want to do the raw, then don't be afraid to eat more and to do that. And realize like it can change later on as your taste buds change and the gut microbiome change, and you can get off those processed foods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, smoothie drinker, you can do it. So you're desperate not to eat them. I can help you get off those. You can get off them for sure. And a lot of people can relate to that because I know there's just so many like vegan processed foods out there that people are hooked on and love, and I get it. So Lexi says salt cravings. Oh my goodness, celery has been a bit satisfying, but I crave at least a few times a day. Like I want steamed vegetables with loads of salt, or on a less inspired day, I just want chips. Thanks, Gillian. So thanks, Lexi. I get it, but I actually do eat salt. I like Celtic sea salt. I think it's like the healthiest salt. That's just my opinion, but I do still have salt. So what about you, AJ? Do you consume salt? And what do you think about tips for people who don't want to consume salt and dealing with those cravings to get off of it?
I personally believe that long-term salt inclusion is a good thing. I think that for a period of time, if people have high blood pressure or they have a lot of inflammation, can see huge benefit to eliminating salt, especially if you have water retention and things like that. As far as salt cravings, if you listen to certain physicians like I think Dr. Robert Morse is a big one. He talks about the adrenal glands being weak, and they're the reason why your body is releasing too much of its natural sodium, and the sodium potassium ratio is off. So if you're someone who's like highly stressed, not sleeping well, you're dehydrated, you're going to crave salt a lot more because your body doesn't have the proper balance. So something you could look into is adrenal gland health, and just some quick tips on that. If you lower your body's inflammation, if you go to bed earlier and you eat this way, if you eat healthier, those things start to balance out and normalize, especially if you get into some fitness as well.
Yeah, and that was a great point. I wanted to mention too, with cravings in general, whether it's salt or something else, like any cravings, your body might need something too, like a mineral or a nutrient. You could possibly be like a little bit deficient in something, and that might be causing those cravings. So I would recommend too, just everybody, like it's a good idea to check your blood work and see where you're at with everything and make sure like there's nothing missing, right? I think that's really important, especially if you're vegan or raw vegan. I can't stress that enough. And I just think like a good tip would be, Lexi, too, if you want to get off salt altogether, what I would personally do is I personally put salt on my raw pastas and my foods, like a little bit of salt. What I would do is just slowly wean yourself off. So put salt on your dish, like whatever, just put the salt on your dish you're eating and then just lessen the amount every day. And I think that would be like an ideal way to get off of it. Just make it less and less and less. And then a lot of people give up salt completely. I used to never eat salt. Once you get used to it, you don't crave it anymore. So if you can get yourself off of it, I would think it takes like about a week to stop the cravings, maybe 2 weeks totally. And then you can totally get over it.
One of the things I do too is I just have one meal with salt. So I don't have it all day long, and I don't usually add it because it can make it a little more complicated. Like I just want to put more and more. So I'll have like things that also have naturally occurring salt because you buy it that way, like olives and stuff. So I'll get my fix in that way sometimes, or I'll have one main meal. So I'm getting some salt, but I'm not like having it all day long.
Yeah, good point. And I know she was saying like she craves chips, which I get. I mean, if I were to crave chips, I would probably go to the local raw restaurant that makes the most amazing kale chips. They make like these cheesy red pepper kale chips or sour cream and onion. That would probably satisfy that. But to me, I think also just getting off of like a lot of dehydrated and getting off all that stuff, then you lose your cravings altogether. So that's what works for me. But I mean, that's what I would do if I wanted chips to replace it with until I was able to get to like another stage of clean eating. But if you were to crave chips, like what do you think, AJ, eating raw, you could replace that with? Again, I would, what do you think?
Just a lot of the stuff we've said already. Just make
Yeah.
sure you're having enough so that in the evening, you're not craving this highly dense, calorie rich food. So like being properly nourished, having some salt options and some food options is probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah. Okay. And the next question comes from Classic Kev. So he's awesome. He has an NFT channel. So shout
Oh,
out
cool.
Classic Kev. Go follow him if you guys are into NFTs, which I think are pretty cool. But he says, Gillian, you read my mind. What I notice is stress causes these cravings. Please help. So I think this is a big thing. Like, and you know what I think can cause stress is like for me, the coffee drinking would cause stress, or like other stimulants are causing stress. Like even onion and garlic cause a bit of stress for me, like I was talking about earlier. So it's all about like just becoming as clean as you can and as aware of how these things affect you. That is just like a head start to like being able to take on the world and like the stresses that come at you. But I do get it that like if a stressful moment happens or like daily stressors are happening, like I can deal with a lot of stress too with things happening in my life, like wanting to run away to those things. So I just think the more healthy habits you get, and like the healthier you eat, the cleaner you eat, the more you build your gut microbiome and change your taste buds, then when you're having those moments and you feel like you have to eat, you can replace it with something healthy and still feel satisfied. Like if I were super stressed out and like, oh my gosh, I need to eat something and like had some dates, that would satisfy me, right? Because I've been eating this clean for so long. What do you think, AJ?
I would personally distinguish, are you sensitive to stress? Are you overly sensitive? Or do you just expose yourself to way too much stress and you need to pull back from that? Because where I'm coming from is I couldn't handle the slightest stress in the least. Now, you can't really live a life that way because we're going to have stress, right? We're going to have stress in our everyday life. If you have even the most basic relationship, there's going to be a lot of stress involved, and it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. But finding out how much of your stress is because your body is just so sensitive. Maybe you have so much inflammation. Maybe you are exhausted and you're tired and your nervous system is fried. Or maybe you have a great body and a great nervous system, but you're just surrounded by things that are really unhealthy. You're surrounded by EMF all day. You're surrounded by toxic people. You're surrounded by toxic chemicals. A lot of people don't realize that using Tide detergent can give you panic attacks. I remember I didn't use it for like 5 years, and then I randomly used it because I didn't have anything and I like ran out. I used that and I woke up in the middle of the night with a panic attack because these chemicals are really triggering us. So finding out what you're sensitive to and eliminating the things that are not really useful in your life, I think that's how I would handle it, and makes it so much easier to choose the better things for us, the better foods and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And before I went raw, I used to have panic attacks, and my stress was so bad, I would have panic attacks. And it was like the worst experience ever. Like I literally thought I was going to die. They were horrible. And I dealt with a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And I've noticed like a lot of it is how I eat. So that's a
Yeah.
huge thing. And like, even I feel more stressed and more unhappy on cooked food for me. And I know that's not the case for everybody. I know some people, no matter how they eat, they can still not feel stressed. But for me, that's
Right.
what's worked. And like I said, like the coffee makes me feel so much more stressed. It's a proven fact. Like your stressors are like way higher after having coffee. So for me, that's a huge one. And when I used to consume alcohol and sugar and even like processed food and gluten is proven to cause like stress and depression. So I think it's really important to take a look at how you're eating and realize like a lot of it starts within. A lot of it isn't just like the external stressors coming at us. Like I even realized when I cut onion, it sounds silly to some people maybe, but I realized when I cut the onions and garlic a couple weeks ago for 3 days, I felt a lot happier, a lot calmer, a lot less stressed. And so I think that's just important to do your research, look into those things. And yeah, and also like get your sleep, because if you're not sleeping properly, you're going to feel more stressed out, anxious, depressed. Not like, not saying you always will, but for me and for a lot of
Right.
other people. And get your exercise, other things to realize it's not all food, and focus. I know you're focused on what you're passionate about, classic Kev, with this YouTube channel and stuff, which is great. So that's amazing. You have that. And yeah, maybe your stress is coming from all those people. You have a pretty positive channel, so I'm not saying that, but you can be stressful dealing with negative comments on YouTube too.
It probably just increasing the overall vitality. That stress will start to diminish. So just eating those healthier foods.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next question comes to us from Raw Moon. So she says, "Hi, Gillian. I struggle with cravings, especially salty foods. I mean, packets of chips, I'm addicted to them. I've managed to not have any for 3 weeks. Way to go since going raw,
Wow.
but I could very easily cave in. How to overcome this at emotional times when you want old comfort food." Another thing I want to say too is at the farmer's market, you can buy fermented pickles, and they are like a little bit salted most times, or you can buy sauerkraut at most grocery stores. They have so many different kinds of sauerkraut now. In my fridge, I have a kitchen tour coming. You'll see everything, but I have, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. But I have beet sauerkraut, carrots and ginger, turmeric sauerkraut, all these different types, not only cabbage, but carrots, other ones. So those are a good snack. I think that would satisfy like at night, and they feed your good gut bacteria. They give you probiotics. So then they lead to like you not craving such other things you don't want to eat, like the chips. But
Yeah, the
also if you're,
olives too. Yeah.
yeah, olives are a great snack. And if you're like, so you've had 3 weeks since going raw. So that's great. And just realize, like I've said, it does change. And at emotional times when you want that old comfort food, like follow maybe the stuff we said earlier in this video.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you still do eat salt and you want to satisfy those cravings, like what I'm doing lately is having like a raw vegan marinara pasta, like I said, and putting some salt in the recipe, putting some salt on it. And I love that. But if I did want to get off salt, it would be no problem because I'm eating so clean. I could wean myself off, no problem. But don't be afraid to add some salt to like the healthier foods. Have some good snack foods like the pickles or the sauerkraut, stuff like that. What do you think, AJ?
Well, the good news is you don't have to wait for your microbiome to change, like with some of these cooked food cravings. With salt, really just that oversensitivity to the taste buds is what you want to change. So if you go for a certain period of time, that will fall away very fast. If you want to resensitize your taste buds, doing a day on water, or like even like a during the day on water or juice, all of that, or some kind of short-term juice fast, that can reset your taste buds so quickly, so that if you eat some celery, you eat an apple, you feel you can taste all of that flavor. A lot of people are so used to just adding so much salt all the time to every dish, so that when they taste something without it, they're like, this tastes like nothing. Now you don't, all you have to do is just cleanse that palate, and it doesn't take that long. So that's a good thing. That's good news.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next question is Vegan Enlightenment says, "How do you cook for kids but stay raw vegan? I'm finally trying 100% raw vegan at the moment. I'm on day 4, which is amazing. Congratulations. It is very difficult to cook and not eat it. I get it, especially in those early stages. That must be really hard. And you are doing absolutely amazing. So I would say like it's a real mental game. My family isn't vegan, and I prepare and cook meals for them all the time, pretty much almost daily. And I managed to do it, absolutely thrive. Like I said, though, I've been doing it a while, so the cravings aren't there anymore. So maybe just know that through listening to me, like it can change. I'm someone who does that and have 2 kids, and I make it work. So you can make it work too if I can make it work. And I would just say, like I did a video with Mimi Kirk. She said a great tip for her when she was all raw was to prepare your food first. So make sure your food is ready, like prepare a nice meal first, have it sitting on the counter waiting, and just get excited to eat that, and then prepare their food and eat everything at the same time. Or eat your meal first and then they eat. Like that's what works for me. Either I eat first or I eat with them, but my food is always prepared, like everything at the same time, and we eat. And for me, it doesn't bother me as well, or it doesn't bother me, but I'm going to do a whole video on that because a lot of people ask me all the time, like a lot of people want to be raw, but their family isn't raw. So I'm going to do a whole video on that. Even AJ, like you can probably relate to this because most people around you aren't raw, they're cooked, right? So do you have any tips for vegan enlightenment?
Well, even back when I was raw, I was buying all the groceries for my household with my mom and my brother and sister, probably 7 or 8 years ago when I first started to do this. And what made it really easy for me was just, like I said before, making sure I was nourished and ate enough so that when it came to that dinner time, I wasn't starving and it didn't look so great. Joe, your tip right there was just most people, women especially, are going to put everyone else first. So if they're making dinner for the family, they're probably going to make their food after. And I would say that's the wrong strategy. You want to make sure your food is made before, so that you are taken care of, so that you can be the best support system for the family, after the fact. So just making sure you're not starving and hungry. And I think that that's probably my best tip, because that's the only way I've been able to succeed the most, having my why and making sure I'm properly nourished.
Yeah, and good point, to make sure you've eaten enough. That's a great point, because say you haven't eaten since lunchtime and you're absolutely starving, like it would be so much more tempting to want to eat those cooked foods. But again, like you want to still make sure you have an appetite for your dinner. Like that's the best time to eat. But and also just make sure you have like something you're excited to eat. Like get excited
Yeah.
about the meal you're preparing and spend time to prepare it if you can, and just get excited about the meal you have, and just realize it's a mental game and it will change and you will get more and more excited, like how I am, and it will become really easy to you. I don't even get tempted by their foods when I look at them at all now. They're cooked foods. So you can definitely do it. But yeah, definitely make sure you're eating enough, and make sure you have food on hand. If you don't have like raw foods to make a meal and then you're making their foods, it would be pretty easy to be like, oh, let me eat their foods, right? So make sure you always have like an abundance of produce around as well.
And I want to encourage you to find some good quality produce, and make sure that you're excited. Like she said, make sure you're excited to eat it. So the apples taste really fresh and good, or the salad is so delicious. If it's kind of mediocre, how long is that really going to last?
Absolutely. And so Claire says, girl, coffee. I'm cutting back, but it's mostly a fear and emotional attachment. Other than that, I'm almost 100% raw. Well, strangely, I have a hard time with steamed vegetable cravings. Well, that's not too bad if you're craving steamed vegetables. That's pretty good, better than poutine or pizza or all this other stuff. But that, yeah, coffee, I get it. That's been actually the hardest thing for me to cut as a raw vegan. Still, sometimes when I like smell it, I don't think I'll be like, oh, coffee, right? That was the hardest thing for me. And plus, it's like a social thing, right? When you have coffee with people. But I just feel like with coffee, it just brings out this fake energy in me. I'm like dropping money on things I wouldn't normally do. I'm like so revved up and stimulated, like attracting people, situation, and circumstances that I wouldn't naturally attract in like this more high vibration, 100% raw vegan state I'm in. So I just feel like, just know, like, I know the cravings for giving up coffee can be really hard. And I know thinking like life without coffee can seem like hell, right? Because I used to drink it all the time. It's so good. But just know, like, mentally, that if you can get it out of your system and like just try it, right? Like, just try it for a few months, but even commit to like getting it out of your system for 30 days. I know it can take a while. And I know those cravings can be really hard. I remember like the first 3 or 4 days coming off coffee can just be the most depressing thing ever. So in those time periods, I think it would help to drink extra juices, green juices, real living juices does help, and some colonics maybe during that time period while weaning off of it. But just know, if you get off of it, like, you're going to feel better. You're not going to have those artificial highs and lows. You're not going to be dependent on anything to make you feel good, which is where I like to live my life with foods. And you're going to sleep better as well. And most likely you're going to have less stress and anxiety. So Claire, you can absolutely do it. DM me on Instagram if you really want to get off it and want help. I will help you, but you can do it. AJ, did you have coffee or no? I can't remember if you're a coffee drinker.
I used to drink a little bit of coffee. I would just encourage Claire to work her way back, like kind of take a what is it called, like the high view of what's going on in her life, and notice, like, is she doing it because of the energy? Is it just the social thing? Is it just because of the taste? Is it she's having 3 cups a day? Can she start to work that down to 1 cup a day? Would her realizing that coffee has a 12-hour shelf life and that interrupts REM sleep, which leads to further exhaustion and more coffee, does that actually trigger anything in her and a desire to start to eliminate that as well? Really understanding like her why and where she stands and how much of an impact it has in her daily enjoyment of things. I think if she answers some of those questions and it becomes clearer, she can come up with an actual action plan to overcome that.
Yeah. And I also feel like, Claire, I know you have a hard time with steamed vegetables, which I don't think are that bad anyway. Like, I don't think you should feel bad about that at all. But I think if that is something you want to give up, then probably cutting the coffee, you will find it's a lot easier to give up the steamed vegetables. Like I said before, if I'm to drink coffee, I would feel like I needed cooked food, because it's just like this deeper hunger. It's like it like throws your balance and your electrolytes and things off in your body. And I feel like if you can cut the coffee, then your cravings will subside anywhere. And I feel way happier off coffee. So I can show you it is possible for you. So Scarlett says, I crave savory dishes. This is my issue with staying on a raw diet. I often get so overwhelmed with dishes. They have so many ingredients. Also, do you do personal coaching? So Scarlett, I get it. Like when I used to cook, I was a terrible cook. Like I was embarrassed to cook for my husband at the time. And I think he just pretended the foods were good. Like I would get overwhelmed too with all the ingredients and be like, I was just never in my nature to be a cook. And with raw foods, even like I see some of these recipes and I get it. They seem so overwhelming. Once they hit like 6 or 7 ingredients, I turn off the TV because I'm like, this is too much for me too. So all the recipes that I post on my channel are pretty simple because I only do simple recipes. So go check out the playlist there and realize it's not complicated. And then also realize like the savory dishes, you can have like delicious pastas, which I always talk about because they're so good and they're so easy to make. So check out the recipe section and then also realize like, if you don't want a ton of ingredients, like the simpler you eat, the better you're going to feel anyway. And as far as the coaching goes, I get a lot of people ask me for coaching. So I am really good at like staying on track and like discipline and a lot of other things. So I think I am going to start some coaching. I did pick up one client, which I started with last week and I really enjoyed it. So I'm not going to take on too many clients because I want to post a lot of content, but definitely contact me. I will put my email in the description below if I can. Otherwise it's in the about section. And yeah, we can go from there. But do you have anything to say, AJ, about the savory dishes and the complicated recipes and getting overwhelmed?
I'm someone who gets overwhelmed with recipes completely. The simpler, the better, which is why I've done like 100 days on banana ice cream or whatever, like super simple stuff. I like it to be simple, but also savory is my favorite dish. I could go forever without sweets if I could have all the savory dishes I wanted. So personally, what I would do if I was this person, I would just go on Jill's channel and watch all of her what I eat in a day videos and see all the savory stuff so that you can find 1 or 2 recipes that really you like a lot and don't overwhelm you so that you have some staples and you don't have to have those 2 forever, but to get through these harder times where you're still figuring this out. That's what I would do.
Yeah. And I would say now, like I have a pretty stocked up spice cabinet. I have like every spice you can imagine dried in my cabinet and like all the ingredients, almost all the ingredients you could need for recipe. So I think like having that staple in your pantry and having all that, which I'm going to show soon in my kitchen tour video, but that helps as well. Like knowing you just have it right there and you don't have to think, oh, I don't have these spices. So build up your spice cabinet too. And that helps. And okay. So I think it's Kyle says, when stuck in bad habits, food choices, and just wanting to stop it all, but can't. Answers to that would be great. What don't help is wanting to keep the weight on for football, soccer, and training. And after eating all the fruits all day, I start to feel like it's not enough and binge on something dense, but then I feel like crap after. So we talked already a little bit about the bad habits and food choices. What do you think about this question though, AJ?
If someone's an athlete, I think that smoothies are probably going to be your best bet. You can throw in tons of dates, almond milk, bananas, maybe some hemp seeds, and these things that are really, really dense, because if you're that active, you want to make sure you're getting enough food or you're going to have those binge moments. It's your body just needs the fuel, right? So banana ice cream is an awesome one. Making sure you're having the salads, just more volume of fruit, I'd say, because fruit is really going to power you with the energy, but also making sure you're getting some of that plant protein so that you can maintain that muscle mass that you want.
Mm-hmm. Good answer. I think that's so true. And I think a lot of people, once they start training and working out more, like cycling or whatever they're doing, they feel like they're not getting enough calories. I think too, like I always say, and I've said it a million times in this video, even, but the chia seed pudding and the coconuts, eating the coconut meat, that's really filling and it gives you a lot of energy. So that's a big thing. People don't realize how easy it is to just go buy a real coconut at the store, crack it open, drink the water, eat the meat. That's really filling and like just feels like it's made for us. So I think that's a good one too for like being active. I think it's just one of the most ideal foods.
And the coconut yogurt and almond coconut yogurt, if you can make that and go through and do that process, that's like the most calorie dense, nutritious, easy to digest, complete full spectrum macronutrients, amazing food.
Yeah. And as far as being stuck in the bad habits, I think it's just like maybe try remove one thing at a time, like remove the processed foods, remove the sugar, remove the coffee, and then just like I've said, immerse yourself in the content and realize it will change if you can get to the other side, and you can get to the other side. You can remove those bad habits. Absolutely. And you'll
And
feel
definitely
better
don't
than
beat
ever.
yourself up when you do have a little bit of a slip up, because it's going to
Yeah,
happen. It takes time.
absolutely. 100%. Okay. So we have a few more left, but are you okay for time?
Yeah, I got a little bit more time, but I do have to
Okay,
go
so
at
I'll
2.
see what else I can ask here. So Kristen says she craves chocolate a lot, especially during her menstrual time. So this is not something you can relate to, AJ. But I think Megri Jade asked this too. So what I do during that time, if I crave chocolate, is I've replaced it with carob powder. It is the ideal, perfect replacement. I make a quick carob powder ice cream with bananas, frozen bananas, carob powder, and some almond milk. And it tastes just like chocolate if you use the right amount of carob powder. And it's the perfect replacement that I have found for chocolate.
I love carob. It's delicious.
Yeah, it's so delicious. And okay, somebody asked about if your partner's not raw vegan, but we kind of touched on that. And again, I'm going to make a video about how to handle it when the people around you aren't raw vegan, your family or whatever. There's another question about that. Okay, hold on. So somebody said, Joe said, when stressed out, a lot of people have cravings for fat, sugar, convenience food. What do you have if you have such cravings? Well, for fat, like a nice satisfying dish for me is just having a perfectly ripe avocado or half of an avocado sliced up with some sea salt and some cayenne powder. That's really delicious. Or like a raw vegan Caesar salad or an Alfredo pasta or things like that would definitely satisfy the fat cravings. And sugar, any sugar cravings. If I have a massive sugar craving, I would have like a couple dates, not too many though, because dried food doesn't make me thrive. But the banana ice cream, the spirulina ice cream, the ice creams are completely satisfy the sugar craving. Or like I encourage you to like think outside of the box, go to the Asian market, try a jackfruit, try an egg fruit, try a sugar apple. You will like these are the sweetest, like all these fruits that most people haven't tried just are the most satisfying sweet fruits on earth. So follow me on Instagram if you don't already too, because I post a lot of those in my story, but definitely like get into more fruits and stuff too. Like, what do you think about that, AJ?
Yeah, I think that those were all the answers that I would give, other than sometimes if I'm having an intense sugar craving, it's because my minerals are off, my mineral balance is off. So actually the best thing for me if I'm having intense sugar cravings isn't to have the sugar, it's to actually have a green juice. And that really balances me out.
Interesting. And some health motivators said sugar cravings on a budget. I would say like if you have a deep sugar craving, you're on a budget, dates, or you can get dates like super cheap at a lot of places. And even the
Dates and
banana.
bananas, yeah.
Yeah. And again, like the banana ice cream, those are the cheapest. Um, yeah. But I mean, yeah, that would probably be the best. And then, so someone says, I struggle having fruit that is ripe and ready to eat. I'm buying from the supermarket, but it isn't ready until 2 weeks later. This leads me to turning to cooked and junk foods. Yeah, I think you have to make sure that you have stuff in your fridge. Like I have coconuts in my fridge right now. I know I can eat one at any time. I have Honeycrisp apples that I know that they're ripe enough to grab at any time. Like pretty much the apples are ready whenever, right?
Yeah.
Or like making a freshly squeezed orange juice. Most of them I have enough ready to make a juice. So I think it's just you have to make sure you have enough produce that is ready on the grow. Have some living lettuce, cucumber, stuff for a salad. But but some things do take more time. I have persimmons in the kitchen that are probably going to take another week or two to ripen. They're taking a long time, but you just have to be patient, but make sure you have enough of other stuff around, like blueberries, stuff that is ready to eat right now.
Yeah. Come up with a list of things that you know that if you went to the grocery store today, you would be able to eat your 3 meals or however many meals. Because if you're only depending upon foods that are going to take ripening, there's going to be days where you're not prepared and then you're going to fall short. So understand that like salads and green juice and apples and these things, they don't need ripening. You can go and just buy them and eat them or make them. Smoothies, you can go buy frozen fruit, throw in like one banana that's pretty ripe enough, right? And adding some of these things in, you can still be nourished, because if it's too inconvenient and you always have to ripen everything all the time, it's going to be a little too overwhelming. That being said, learn the ripening stages and processes so that if you buy some bananas today, in 3 days they're ripe and you're prepared.
Absolutely. And okay, this last question says, during the raw vegan journey, too much craving of jaggery. What is that? What to do?
I don't know. Never heard of it.
I think it might be a type of sugar cane. I could be wrong, but you guys are going to have to let me know in the comments down below. But I think it's a type of sugar. But I mean, Yeah, I think it is, but I'll have to look that up. So I'm sorry. I can try answer it in the comments down below for you guys though. But I'm pretty sure it's a type of sugar, but I'll answer that down below. Anyway, this has been great. Thanks so much, AJ, for being with us and offering all your like invaluable information and just your perspective and your personal experience. It's been great. And do you have anything you want to end off with?
There's nothing better than feeling good. So I want to encourage you, if you guys have a dream and an ambition and goal to feel really good, and this seems like it's the right thing for you, stick with it, learn what you need to, listen to your own self and your body and your needs, be prepared, watch Jill's videos, get educated, and just go for it. Feel really good so that you can live the life you want to live. Thanks for having me, Jill.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I love making videos with you and I couldn't agree more. And I just want to say, like, you guys can do it. Just slowly get these foods out, add in more raw living foods, work on rebuilding your gut, and your cravings will slowly start to diminish and diminish and diminish, and realize it does change over time. Get out there, focus on your passions, get moving, do other things. Like we've said, it's not all about food. Get proper sleep, get proper sun. And yeah, I think that's it for today's video, but I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you guys subscribe to AJ and follow him on his Spotify as well. I will link it down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.